Hey everybody, this time we're going to draw Garnet, one of my favorite characters of Steven Universe. So let's get right to it. So, as often we are going to start with the head, and the head has this kind of cuboid shape, and I want to draw her from the side, and therefore we have to consider also a little bit of the perspective. Doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but at least it should look somewhat believable. Alright, and we are drawing now in this cuboid here at the front here another square, and I draw it in a way that I separate this line here in 3 equal parts and then use the middle part for the section where the face is going to be. Now as for the face, we are drawing now the center lines here, and I also cut off a little bit down here, and now we are just drawing the shades, which are very simple. These are just this W shape here that follow the center lines. Now for the nose are just these 2 little lines here that come together like a V shape. And the mouth has at first here this line for the lip, and I give her a smile, a smirk, a sassy smirk, and also the lower lip down here. Now let's give the hair a bit more of the typical shape. We have 2 curves here on the sides, on each of these sides here. Very simple. And then we have 1 continuous curve. There's no edge like this, like sharp edge, but it's 1 single curve that connects it up over here. And of course also down here. You can also give here some curvature too, if you want to. And this is the head of Garnet. We are moving over now to the body. I'm quickly draw the neck, and as for the chest, we draw a oval shape, and this oval shape is of about the size, like if you are slightly inwards of the cuboid here, then this is going to be about the line where the oval is going to end, and also right here, but more inwards in this case because of perspective. And we simply draw it now, and what we also are going to do is we draw the center line here, which is going to help us when we want to draw the shoulders. The shoulders are very simple. They are these circular shapes that are slightly above the center line here, like so, and they go up until they touch, as to say, the hair. They are about the same height. And also 1 over here. And the shoulders are not exactly spheric, but they have some sort of egg shape, which varies a lot again from scene to scene, so there is no exact way how to describe the shape. But what I do is normally I add a little bit of extra curvature to these circles to give them this kind of egg shape. So these circles are mostly for me, they're for me as a guide to make it easier for me to draw this shape. Now next of all, we want to give her star pattern on her chest, and for this what helps is that you give her this kind of square at first around her neck. This is the newer design of her, and now we are using this part here. We continue it a little bit more, and then have it like we continue also this line here. We imagine a curve that is going around, and where it intersects with the star spike here, this curve is continuing again, and then we draw the inner one in a way that the thickness here is always the same, and this is how we give her star pattern. Now we are next of all going to draw the waist. And the waist is kind of a cylinder shape, as to say. These characters are drawn very differently from scene to scene, so the body proportions vary a lot, so I cannot give you any exact numbers. Now for the hip. The hip is about as wide as the head itself, so very wide in respect to her waist. And so we give it this very wide curves here. And so yeah, as I said, you can imagine that this is kind of a cylinder shape here. This goes around, but it actually is one single segment, so I'm not drawing this extra line here. It's not necessary, but it can help you if you want to draw a more special pose and want to get the perspective right. And now for the legs. For the legs, I'm drawing this very long oval shapes here that are even longer than the height of the head here, of this cuboid for the head. They're also quite wide too, and a second one, of course, over here that intersects with the other one, and going a little bit lower here because of perspective again, like so. Here we have this intersection. And for the last part of the legs, what I do normally is I just simply draw these lines. I just continue the lines here about as high as these ovals here, and then I just draw them in a way that they narrow down more and more until they get quite narrow down here. And this is where the foot is going to be, and the foot is very simple. We have just this very simple spike shape, as to say. And to give the foot some extra detail, normally at the back you have this extra line here, and also around the toes you have this curve. And so this is one leg, and you can later on give the leg more definition. Here you have it curving in, and also here, but not as much. And this is how you do it. Now we're moving over to the other leg. Again, the same thing. We continue the lines down, goes down even more, and then we have the spike here coming off. I give it extra details, curve it in slightly, and there we go. Have the legs. Also for the legs and the hip part, you have this kind of extra pattern and extra line right here, where you have it around the waist, and it's a straight line downwards. And this is again the newer design, her newer style. Before that it was simply a line like right here, but it has changed. Also this part here, this extra curve around the toes is also new. So yeah. Now as for the arms, I'm giving it a blue color to distinguish them from the rest of the drawing. How we do it is we have these segments here, this oval shape, these long oval shapes, right here and right here for the upper arms, and then for the lower arms we draw them in a way that they go across until they touch this part here of the opposite upper arm. And this is, you do the same thing right here. And now this is going to be hidden, so we don't have to worry about the hand, of course. And here we have the thumbs up hand, and I'm going to draw some extra guidelines to help me out with that. In this case, I just draw this very box-like shape because it's very helpful, and just curve it, and it's in a way that it curves up and then curves, but at a different angle. And there we have the thumbs up, and then just indicate the knuckles here, and this is enough to draw this particular hand pose. Now I'm going to do the time lapse for the outlining and coloring, and I will do another drawing of her in a different pose in order to show you that you can draw her in any pose that you want with these techniques and not just this one particular pose that I just showed you. And while I'm doing the time lapse, I'm going to talk over it to tell you some nice interesting facts about Garnet. Alright then, let's get to it. So Garnet has this big secret, a surprise you could say, and of course I won't spoil it for you, for those who haven't seen it yet. You can just know that there is this thing, and it is one of my main reasons why Garnet is actually one of my favorite characters. Rebecca Sugar said in one interview that she was actually planning this secret even before the pilot episode. So from the beginning it was an essential part of the story, and you are even able to see some hints here and there in the episodes before the secret was revealed, and even in the pilot episode. Of course I won't tell you which they are, you have to figure it out yourself or you just look it up. And another thing about Garnet, well, all of the crystal gems have their own unique dance style, and Garnet too obviously. And her dance style is strongly based on whacking with double A-C-K. And whacking is a dance style which was invented back then in the 70s in some LGBT clubs in Los Angeles. And this style involves a lot of wide and fast arm movements, even above the shoulders and behind the back and stuff. I'm not trying even to imitate it. And it is supposed to emphasize the beat and the feeling of the music, and it also involves a lot of footwork and poses. It's a very interesting dance style, and well, before I did the research I actually never heard of it, and the first time when I saw it in some YouTube video I was immediately like, yeah, this is Garnet, this is how she dances. It is very powerful and also has some sass in it. It's pretty cool. Alright, and I'm done with the drawings. Now the second version also has her weapons, these big knuckles, and how to draw them is you have at first a cylinder which is kind of replacing the palm of your hand in some way, and so the fingers are actually based like these. You see these gem-like things over there, you know, at the knuckles, and they are at the base. They are right on top of the cylinder. So the fingers are actually curved in a very weird way. It is very hard to describe, but they are not like normal hands. And so, yeah, it's hard to describe how to draw them, but it's simply a cylinder with fingers on top of them, and then you of course have the star at the back side, and yeah, this is pretty much how you draw them. And now it's Q&A time again, and this time I have another question from Unseen Ivy, who is asking, do you prefer drawing in cartoon or more realistic style, and why? Well, clearly I have to say cartoon style. I am not a big fan of the realistic style because it involves a lot of time, and what is important to me is like the feeling of the drawing. Like, of course it's super impressive if it's hyper realistically drawn and stuff, but even though a drawing of a cat, for example, which is super detailed and hyper realistic and stuff and looks like it's real, like it's a photo, it may be impressive and wow, and this must have been a lot of work, but that's it, then you're done. But it isn't really that inspiring or gives you some sort of emotion or something. And that's strongly emphasized for me because art is experienced very differently from person to person. So it is just my personal preference. I remember Bob Ross talking about it, who previously, before he did the show and stuff, was actually doing this. He was doing this super hyper realistic paintings where he had this super fine brushes and was drawing every single detail one after another. and took so much time, like weeks or months even, just for one single painting. And later on he figured out that there were these other techniques which are strongly simplified but still looked good enough. And then he was able to finish his works within just some hours or so, and he liked it so much more because he simply was able to do many more paintings within a certain time and had much more fun with it too. Alright then, so if you have a question about pretty much whatever, then just feel free to add it to the comment section, and I'm actually very happy to get a lot of questions. And if you want to help me keeping the show running, then you can support me on Patreon, which I would really highly appreciate, and of course you get some nice rewards too. Alright then, have fun drawing!